It is Friday, July 19th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. You know those dudes, Bobby Skinner, Justin Penik. I am Chris Rose. Producer Mikey is along for the ride as well, as we are all reunited. And this is like maybe the penultimate show that we're going to have before football actually sinks in and we start getting guys on the field and doing our whole thing. Bobby Skinner, I imagine you will have many sleepless nights in eager anticipation.
Oh, it's my favorite time to do content is training camp. I'll be up in New Jersey for almost a month. We'll be out there talking to the people, trying to get our campaigns going as we run for president. I'm excited for it.
And speaking of training camp started, I mean, rookies reported this week on a lot of teams, and then the vets are going to report next week throughout the week. And we've talked about this, and we've teased it over on Talk Giants too. But starting on Monday, every single weekday, Monday to Friday, we are doing TPPs on this channel. We're starting with the Carolina Panthers, the last team in our power rankings, and then we'll end off with the Kansas City Chiefs, and everybody else will be in the middle. So every single weekday, TPPs. We'll also be doing our regular Football Today episodes too. There's trivia going on. There's going to be some days where there's 3 videos going out on this channel at one time. So it may still be the offseason, but we're grinding and we're getting ready for this regular season. Football's back, man.
So make sure you click the link. Subscribe, give us a thumbs up. That always helps. So just do that. Now, today, we're going to be focused on, we're a little bit like Netflix. We're focusing on receivers and quarterbacks. So that's what we do. We're going to do quarterback battles heading into training camp. So we got a handful of those to go over. But let's start in the wide receiver world, since they seem to have made a little bit of news over the last few days. And we're going to focus on the NFC West and the AFC West to jumpstart this thing. Brandon Aiyuk has reportedly come out and said, I want to be traded by the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he has 1 year and $14 million left on his deal. Starting next week, he will be subject to the $40,000 a day fine. If he starts missing preseason games and then regular season games, we're talking about almost $1 million per, with stuff that he could be nailed by the franchise. I don't know if that sort of stuff still happens. Those always feel like fake fines once the teams start kissing and making up. But my question for you, Penik, let's start with you.
Yeah.
Do you think that Brandon Aiyuk is a San Francisco 49er on opening day?
Yes. And I think these teams, we've talked about it, like good on the Bengals for doing this, and I think even good on the 49ers. So even though I do think that they a little bit more seriously have made it maybe floated around Deebo Samuel's name out there, and maybe even Brandon Aiyuk as the draft cycle has gone by. But you want to know what? Especially if you're a team like the 49ers, your team like the Bengals, but we're talking about Aiyuk right now. You want to win a Super Bowl this year. And who is one of the top 5 players on your roster that is most important and most imperative in helping that goal be accomplished? It's Brandon Aiyuk. $14 million you're getting this year. And you know what? Doesn't even matter what your kind of cap hit is. You're under contract. And I think there's certain players that are seeing maybe what goes on in the NBA. Stars that just want out. And they get out. And they get everything that they want. You ask and you shall receive over in the NBA. This isn't the NBA. There's a team that's in a window. There's a salary cap. It's in a window. You're under contract. Show up and play. Or like you said, Chris, if you don't show up, then you're going to get fined. You're not going to get paid. And if you don't show up and then you hit the open market, you're not going to get paid as much as you would if you played the year. And guess what? If you win a Super Bowl for the 49ers, you're going to get paid a lot of money anyway.
Well, I think even if Aiyuk doesn't show up, I think he's going to get the same exact contract next year unless there was some major injury. Yeah, why wouldn't he?
I think teams are now, we've seen it twice, right? 2 different very situations. Le'Veon Bell, running back position, but he got off for a year. I don't think he got the same contract. And then even Deshaun Watson, he did get the contract, but I think teams are afraid of the play taking a step back, because you saw that with Bell. He was not the same. And Deshaun Watson was not the same. I think teams may be afraid of that.
I think that's comparing apples and oranges. The running back Le'Veon Bell and then a quarterback who's going through crazy legal issues. I don't think it's even comparable. There's no doubt in my mind he'd get the exact same contract. But from the 49ers standpoint, there's no reason to trade him, because even if you don't want to give him that big contract eventually, you can tag him and trade him next year. You'll probably get the same return, and you're in a Super Bowl window. So, like, to me, the 49ers did this with Debo a couple years ago and able to get a contract done. And the 49ers would rather trade Debo, right? So I still think they're going to try and take advantage of this Super Bowl run. They have floated Debo around this offseason, but I think it's more likely that Debo is gone, not this year, but next year over Aiyuk. Like, Ayuk's the one guy on that team who just goes out there and just wins on his own.
Yeah, he led the league last year in almost 18 yards per catch. And at $14 million, I mean, think about what a deal that is. Look at all of the receivers that have gotten contract extensions over the last 2 years. We're talking about upwards of $30 million a year, and you're getting one of the best route runners, a superior blocker, a guy that is there every game, and you're getting him for less than half of that. That's something special. Now, the only thing I would throw out there, because, Justin, you made the obvious point that the Niners, like, for the last 5 years, they've been to the NFC title game. 2 times they've been to the Super Bowl. Twice they've led the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter with minutes to go. So all they care about is kissing that Lombardi trophy. Brandon Aiyuk enables them to do that much better than him not being there. The only way I see them trading is not for a draft pick. They're not interested in draft picks. Can we get another edge rusher? Can we improve our offensive line? Like, that's the only way, plus draft picks, in my opinion, that you could entertain the idea of trading Brandon Aiyuk. Does anybody see that happening? Bobby, do you see that happening?
I don't. I know Pretty Ricky floated out there that maybe he go to the Raiders for Davante Adams. So, like, that is something that could make sense because Adams right now is a better receiver than Aiyuk, but long term you'd rather have Aiyuk, obviously. That's the only one, because I think anything we talk about, like, what player is out there that would make sense and a team would be willing to move off of where it makes sense for the 49ers.
So there's 2 things I could think of. One is Joey Bosa, and I'm not talking about a straight up 1-for-1. There's got to be other stuff involved, I would imagine, right? Chargers need an elite receiver. It's the one area that they didn't hammer home. And joining Bosa, I know Joey's not nearly the player that Nick is at this point in his career, and injuries have kind of plagued him the last few seasons, and he's got a healthy price tag, but he is somebody that could help and maybe be rejuvenated up in San Francisco. I don't know. And then
he's a free agent next year, right? Like, I just don't see that San Fran wanting to pull the trigger on something like that for an injury-prone guy.
I get it. It's not ideal. I'm just saying that that's a possibility. And the other thing is that it doesn't feel like their offensive line improved significantly in the offseason. And outside of Trent Williams, it's okay at best the rest of the way. So is there a team out there that has so few teams have reserve linemen, but is there a team where it would make sense where you get a starting lineman and other things for Brandon Aiyuk?
Yeah, to be like a throwaway, like Robert Hainsey from the Bucs with the first round pick or whatever they get, because I don't think, they may not be super interested in draft capital, but they're probably, any team that's willing to trade a certain lineman, they're probably not going to be super interested in that player. I'm trying to think of offensive linemen that have been traded.
But no matter what, like, these scenarios, like, they make sense and they're kind of plausible, but at the end, we're going to come on this show and we're going to say the 49ers just got worse and much worse.
Yeah, and what makes sense is for them to keep him and either try and get a contract done or tag him and trade him next year. That's just the most they should, and they've stood their ground before, so I don't see any reason why San Fran won't. Again, the only thing that makes sense is the Davante Adams one.
Okay, speaking of which, let's get to Davante. He is one of the 5 receivers. It's technically 4 receivers and a tight end in George Kittle that are being starred on the Netflix show. Penik, you finished this, right?
I did. I enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it. I'm in the middle of episode 5 just because.
Did you hear your voice yet?
I have not. I was excited to hear that it was in episode 6. So yes. I can't wait. I'll probably stop and replay it about 17 times or so. But with Davante Adams, very interesting and very honest, where he talked about a lot of things. Everything from, it's not strictly about wins and losses with me. It's about chasing greatness. They talked to him through the coaching and GM shift. They talked to him, and he gave very honest answers about Jimmy Garoppolo getting benched, and he admitted, I signed off on that. What was the most interesting thing for you, Justin?
Well, I want to start off with the whole, it's not wins and losses for me, it's about greatness. And then you saw that they cut to all the national pundits and all the national shows talking about that one quote and that one sentence. They're like, oh, well, what do you mean it's not about wins and losses? And I think just from the context of that show and hearing what he had to say in the heat of the moment, that's in itself is a bad quote. But I think what Davante Adams was talking to was kind of really emphasizing throughout that whole season where the Raiders were kind of winning games, but still struggling offensively greatly. He was talking about the process of the way that the offense has gone about their business, where even if they win a game 13-10, 13-7, Davante Adams is in the locker room sometimes not happy just about knowing that that's not sustainable. And I kind of commend that. I kind of commend a player being like, you know what, this process isn't great. I know we're winning some games here, but it just doesn't feel right. And largely when the process is going right is because I'm one of the best receivers in the game and I'm getting the football. And if I'm getting the football more, odds are we're scoring more points. And there was even parts of that series, Chris, you're not there yet, but there were parts of that series where towards the end of the season, the Raiders are kicking the shit out of the Chargers, but I don't think Davante Adams is getting the ball a ton, but he's happy as could be because the plan is working. I am occupying space. Guys are looking at me, and my boys around me are getting open. The process is working a little bit better. So that's really where I really kind of gained a little bit of respect there from Davante Adams in that aspect of talking about the process of things. But then it leads me to 2024 and thinking on, man, it may get ugly again. And then where is the Davante Adams conversation going to go from there?
Yeah, like that. Those quotes to me aren't like, they're selfish quotes and selfish teammates. That's just Davante Adams being honest of what every great player thinks. I remember when LaDainian Tomlinson got flack for saying like, no, I wouldn't trade my career to be just a decent player and win the Super Bowl. Like, there's no way. Really, for quarterbacks is the one position where that, you would probably trade for Super Bowls over like being the greatest. So those are just honest quotes that every athlete feels, right? And I kind of like that. Like, hey, if I didn't play well or offense didn't play well when we won, you shouldn't be happy, right? You should aim to make it easier on your defense. But here's the thing: Antonio Pierce is not going to trade away Davante Adams before this season for not, again, unless it's Aiyuk. Like, there's no way Antonio Pierce is punting. Now, it could very well happen in season, but there's no way Pierce is punting on Adams for a draft pick before the year starts.
Well, the big story has been Davante Adams telling Kay Adams that, hey, I would like to finish my career playing with Aaron Rodgers. And, well, Davante Adams is 31, and he kept talking, hey, I'm much closer to the end than the beginning. If that's the case with him, how about Aaron Rodgers, who's 40 years old? That guy's way closer. So we don't have a lot of time to work this out. So it could basically be this year, right? Because Aaron Rodgers is a year-to-year deal at this point. So everybody said, well, that's it. Davante Adams is going to end up on the Jets. It's a foregone conclusion. Bobby, you just said that there's no way that he gets traded before the season. Do you think that he could be a Jet by the end of the season?
Oh, absolutely. If there's any player in the NFL where you said, hey, who is the most likely star to be traded at the deadline, it's Davante Adams, because they built off of the wins towards the end of the year.
I think he's
they're going to go try and go in the season and say, hey, we're going to win and we're going to do it our way. And they're probably not going to be very good. And then they're going to have some, honest conversations in that building, and trading Davante Adams for whatever you could get for him is going to be the most likely thing there. And Adams won't be happy either if they're losing.
But what in the world? I love Davante Adams. I think since day one, I didn't know much about him at Fresno State. I wasn't tuning into Bulldog games all that much. Saw some clips, obviously, because he and Carr were big names. But, okay, so Green Bay got a 1 and a 2, right, for Davante Adams. Now we're a couple years removed, but we still added 2 100-catch seasons in silver and black with shoddy quarterback play at best. What in the world would you ask? I mean, you're going to be holding the Jets hostage here for Davante Adams. What? Now 2 years removed, 31 years old. Penik, play GM right now if you're the GM of the Raiders. And we're 7 weeks into the season, and we're 2-5, or we're 3-4, and we just feel like because of the quarterback issues, it's not great. What do you do?
I just looked at Mike Williams' contract, and he has an insane structure with 4 void years after this. He has a very low cap hit this year, but the Raiders are going to have to pay him to not be on the team last year. Or if you can negotiate, like the Jets have to pay that. I don't know. Funky stuff happens with cap stuff and trade stuff, contract stuff as it works. But you're going to have to. I think you're going to have to give them a receiver to get through the year, because if Davante Adams leaves the Raiders, what structure are they going to have? So that's where I think Bobby's right. What structure are the Raiders going to have for any quarterback that they want to have somewhat success with? They need to get through the season. And then you're going to have to it's draft picks. You're just give them draft picks because the Raiders want to rebuild, and that's how they're going to win the trade.
The thing that sucks is that as of right now, and I know we're months away from even college starting, or a month, the quarterback class is nowhere close to the one we just saw where 6 guys were taken in the top 12 picks. Doesn't mean guys can't pop, can't develop in new homes where they've transferred. Maybe they find a new coaching voice that helps them ascend to a new level. But we've talked about this, guys. Like, the Raiders feel like they might be in the worst quarterback situation in the entire NFL moving forward. It doesn't mean they've got the worst quarterbacks right now, but the worst quarterback situation because it is so unknown. Like, if you lose Davante Adams right now, it feels totally hopeless. Does it not, Bobby?
Oh, absolutely. But, we'll talk about in our QB battles stuff. Like, I think they're already hopeless at quarterback, and they'll force feed Davante Adams and stuff, but I don't think it's going to lead to a lot of scoring for them this year. But again, if they want to rebuild, which is what they should be doing, premium draft capital can help, whether it's used on a quarterback or other players, and I think if they take on that cap, and I hate pre-trading guys before a season started. I feel bad, for Raiders fans listening to this, but it's the reality. If they can, I think they can get a first if they pay some of that money for the rest of the year, so that team doesn't, the team that trades from doesn't have to move a ton of money around. You look at a guy like Leonard Williams was traded for a 2nd and 5th last year. I think you can absolutely get a 1 for a guy who's like probably a top 5 wide receiver. He's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL still.
Totally.
Without going through the list of guys, but he's a top 5 guy still. And a team that's looking to win the Super Bowl, yeah, they can get a 1 out of somebody.
Okay. Let's finish it up with this on the wide receiver talk. Raise your hand if you think that Brandon Aiyuk is a Niner for the entire season.
Hand raised.
Let the record show that my hand is also raised.
All three are raising their hand. Raise your hands if you think Davante Adams is a Raider for the entire season.
Let the record show my hand is down.
Yeah, hand down, man down.
Wow, God, we just should book his flight to New York right now, right? Let's pick a date in October.
If the Raiders can get the 4-3, there's no chance, but I don't see it happening.
Okay, all right. Second part of this program today is the quarterback battles, and why don't we start out there in Las Vegas? Because I really don't know who is going to start, and this could have a serious impact on Davante Adams' future out there in Las Vegas anyway. So you've got Aiden O'Connell, who's in his 2nd year. He made 10 starts taking over for the ineffective Jimmy Garoppolo last season, 5-5 in those 10 starts. Gardner Minshew, who started the bulk of the games for the Indianapolis Colts and had them right on the precipice of making the playoffs last year until Week 18. He has made nearly 40 NFL starts, and he has signed a free agent deal. Bobby Skinner, who is under center on opening day.
Well, it should be Gardner Minshew. You mentioned the Aiden O'Connell 5 wins. Those wins came versus Tommy DeVito, Zach Wilson, Easton Stick, Jared Stidham, and a guy named Patrick Mahomes, which is a very big win. But let's talk about that game.
I don't know who that last guy is, Bobby, but the other 4 are legends.
Yeah. Well, Tommy DeVito actually is a legend.
That's true.
Had a Super Bowl commercial. Aiden O'Connell in that Chiefs win versus Patrick Mahomes threw for 62 yards. I think you weren't on the show a couple weeks ago, Rose, when we were talking about the Raiders. Mm-hmm. How many yards, over under 25 yards, Aiden O'Connell had in the last 3 quarters of that Chiefs win?
Because of the question, I'm going to go under.
How about over under 1 yard?
I have to go over.
Under. He didn't complete a single pass after that second drive of the game that ended in a field goal for them.
Dude, I suck at the Price is Right. I guess I can't. I mean, I was for you, and I'm the fat kid that used to sit home, fake being sick, so I could watch the Price is Right. I thought this was really going to help me today.
Yeah, and he literally went 3 quarters without producing a positive play. They held the team to 3 points and lost the game with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Right, so it's both bad options. This is the worst QB battle in the NFL right now. But Gardner Minshew is better than Aiden O'Connell. And for a team that's trying to win games and is not punting on a season, or at least doesn't want to punt on a season, Gardner Minshew gives them the best option.
Yeah, and the money would tell you Gardner Minshew too, because he has an $8 million cap hit this year, $14 million cap hit in 2025, and then the 2 void years after that with very little money in it. But so the money would tell you Gardner Minshew. But I mean, the one thing I'll just float out there. This isn't an endorsement of Aiden O'Connell. I think it's just a reality check on Gardner Minshew. Is last year he was in the high 20s in this EPA and CPUE composite, I believe, maybe even mid 20s. And Aiden O'Connell was like right there with him in overall efficiency, including the accuracy metrics as well. And Gardner Minshew was in a much, much better offensive situation with Shane Steichen, a number 1 weapon that they just paid, a really good offensive line, and a solid run game. Aiden O'Connell kind of did not have that. And the offensive coordinator now is Luke Getsy, who I view as very much as a downgrade from Shane Steichen. So keep that in mind with Gardner Minshew. I think it's going to be Minshew week 1, and I think it should be based on the money that they gave him, the guy that has more experience and an NFL pedigree, but I'm not totally 100% sold that it will be yet.
So not to mix sports here, but I just saw CeCe Sabathia at the Major League Baseball All-Star game, and he is a huge Raiders fan. And I'm like, he used to kill Derek Carr. Couldn't stand him. And I'm like, you're dying for those days, aren't you, brother? Because now look what you got. He just sits there and laughs, and that big laugh that CeCe's got. And it's a brutal choice, guys. I've got to be honest with you. If I'm a Raiders fan and I'm like, Gardner Minshew starting opening day, like against the Chargers, you're like, okay, great. Or if you hear that Aiden O'Connell is starting opening day, you're like, great. There's just zero excitement out of whatever choice that you have made. I did hear Davante Adams, I think he said it on FS1, that he would back the guy he played with last year. Maybe that's because he has never caught a meaningful pass yet from Gardner Minshew. But once again, if this is the guy who signed off last year on the benching of one dude, don't you imagine that the team has to listen a little bit to the early season endorsement, Bobby, of Davante Adams?
And no, you don't.
No?
And Davante Adams will come around once camp starts. Because at least Minshew and his flaws is going to push the ball down the field, be a little reckless. He's going to have interceptions. Where O'Connell's just going to get rid of the ball and check it down. And Minshew's going to throw a better ball down the field as well. Both he was better in basically every category when it came to pushing the ball down the field last year. Davante Adams will change his mind in training camp because Gardner Minshew's the better option here.
I would go with Gardner Minshew as well. Are we all in agreement? Say aye.
Aye.
Penik?
Gardner Minshew.
But you didn't give me an aye. I didn't hear aye.
I think Jordan Love is going to get a contract by this weekend.
Wow, you're really taking us the wrong direction. Penik, if you're going to play along. You get, we're all voting on this. I need to hit the gavel and all that sort of stuff. You had no interest in hitting a gavel. 0.
I think Gardner Minshew will be under center week 1.
It was very official. All right, let's move on to Pittsburgh, which has 2 new quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, of course, signed there for virtually no dollars because Denver's going to pick up that tab. Thank you very much. And Justin Fields was traded there for a late-round pick. Of course, he has been the Chicago Bears starting quarterback the last several years. Russell has been the guy firmly entrenched there throughout minicamp. Is there any way that he is not the starting quarterback as long as he is healthy this season, Justin Penik?
Russell Wilson?
Yes.
Yeah, he should be. And I think Bobby and I'm starting to really put my foot down that Russell Wilson for 2024, if it's important to keep the streak alive of Mike Tomlin having a winning season, I think Russell Wilson is clear and above the better choice than Justin Fields. But in a way, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, these are two similar QBs who I can see fitting what Arthur Smith wants and does, but also they very much do not fit. And they kind of don't really fit any offense.
Well, they don't fit because neither one is particularly good anymore.
Correct. And the areas in which they don't fit is that, man, it's either all and not just nothing, but the sacks that they take, it kills you.
First and third in QB allowed sacks. And Fields missed games. And Russ, so did Russ, too.
And for an offense that I think like the Steelers, I think they can be explosive with George Pickens. And if you run play action and you get the tight ends involved, but I don't think they're going to be like, slinging it down the field and gunslinger mentality. I don't think that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be. And also they're going to run the ball so damn much that if you take a sack, a lot of the time in the NFL, when you take a sack, a drive is over. But it's really going to feel that way in Pittsburgh. That there's just, man, what are we going to go to? What's the menu say that we can go to here that we can get ourselves out of trouble here? The drive's going to be over, and both of these guys take sacks way too often. But I honestly think Russell Wilson is the lesser of the two evils here, and I am going with him definitively week 1.
See, I'm definitively think Fields should be it. What is the upside of starting Russell Wilson?
Better player right now.
Okay. So we talked about them having similar issues as quarterbacks. They're going to be a heavy 2 tight end team with play action, heavy run game, correct?
Yes.
Right? We've talked about that. They need to lean into the 2 tight end stuff, heavy run game. That's Arthur Smith. They're going to be a heavy play action team. They have one wide receiver that can get you 1,000 yards. To me, Justin Fields, he gives you an upside there, and he's shown that he can force feed a wide receiver 1 with DJ Moore, right? DJ Moore was 6 in receiving last year with Justin Fields as a quarterback, a guy who's thrown for 300 yards one time his entire NFL career. It's not a big investment where you need to try and develop him into this great drop back passer. Lean into Justin Fields' legs. Like, that's a huge advantage that Justin Fields has over Russell Wilson. And if you're going to get into this heavy run play action, like Justin Fields can make the throw, make all, just as many. I think he's a better thrower of the football right now than Russell Wilson is. Like, I actually don't see the upside of starting Russ. Like, and I'm not sure that Russ will be better than Justin Fields. Like, at least Justin Fields is a young player, has all the talent in the world, and like he rushed for 1,000 yards 2 seasons ago, right? So a team that's going to be leaning into running the ball, why not lean into it with the quarterback who's going to add a ton on his legs, can make a simplified, streamlined offense where it's running, play action, and quick, easy throws, and then pushing the ball downfield to George Pickens. Like, I actually strongly think they should go to Justin Fields, even though they're probably going to go with Russ.
I think
Chris, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I have it because I just have a funny thought. What film should what other offensive coordinator should Arthur Smith be watching this offseason on how to get the best out of Justin Fields, Bobby?
Are you going to say Brian Daboll?
No.
Who?
No. Greg Roman. Arthur Smith should become more like Greg Roman for Justin.
Yeah, that's too big of a transformation for a guy to make. You can't just be Greg Roman. And Arthur Smith has his identity as an offensive player. He's not going to change that. But
do you think that Arthur Smith is going to allow Justin Fields to unlock his legs besides just QB scrambles?
Why not? I mean, Ryan Tannehill used his legs a lot in that offense with him. They did a lot of zone read stuff with Mariota and Atlanta, and then Ritter just sucked out at everything. Like, yeah, I don't see why he won it.
Okay.
This is the toughest, I think, position battle all summer in the NFL because the Steelers, I don't think they know which guy helps them the most this year. I know you two are seemingly split, and I'm confused as hell. And then they don't have a future necessarily because they're not going to pick up, right? They've passed on Fields' 5th-year option. So he's a free agent after this year. There's a possibility he could be the Steelers' quarterback of the future, as a guy in his mid-20s right now. But he has to play with this personnel and in this offense in order for them to throw money down on the table. And they don't know if Justin Fields is the right guy. If you read the reports out of Pittsburgh, he wasn't accurate in minicamp, where they're not even in full pads. Like he would look at one read and then get off it, and then he'd want to use his legs. Like this is year 4 for him now. This isn't year 2 in the NFL.
That's also what Russell Wilson does too.
Yes, I would say that.
Here's the issue: is Russell Wilson's going to speak their language better. He's got a great football mind. He's going to go in there and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable. That's what's going to be the deciding factor in this. Is that when they're talking ball and putting together stuff, Russell Wilson can be a big part of that. And they picked to play with him instead of the Sean Payton relationship. That's where I think why Russell Wilson will end up being the starter. And it seems like they kind of gave him a little bit of that guarantee when he signed there.
Okay. Once again, let's close with this. Assuming that Russ stays healthy and is upright the entire season, how many games does Justin Fields start for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Justin, we'll go with you, then Bobby, then me.
I'll go with in the range of 4 to 6. 5.
Okay.
10.
Can I split the difference? I think it's
7.
I think it's 7.5. I think he comes out after halftime of one of the games too. I want that extra. I want the hook, guys. I want the hook. But opening day, Bobby, do you have him as opening day, Justin Fields?
No, I think he should be, but I think Russell Wilson's going to start opening day.
Okay, so all of us think that when it's Kirk Cousins on the other sideline, we think that it'll be Russell Wilson. I feel like one of those classic.
So do you guys both think Russ should be the? I mean, Justin's planted his flag in the sand. What about you?
Yes, yes, I do, because the guys in the locker room know who's going to help them win more games right now. And even though they can probably see talent in Justin Fields, they know that right now that Russ gives them a better chance to win. I think. Not by much. Yes. That wasn't firmly planting the flag. That was like bringing it to the beach with me and trying to find a spot to put it in there.
Flag in the sand.
We're a big flag in the sand pod, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the Denver Broncos. So we've got 3 quarterbacks there, one of which returned, Jared Stidham. You got Bo Nix, who's the first-round pick. And you've got a former first-round pick in Zach Wilson, whom they traded a late-round pick for from the New York Jets. All 3 split first-team reps in minicamps. Which direction are we going here, Bobby? Is it definitely the first-round pick that will be under center on opening day?
It should be. One, first of all, get Zach Wilson out of my face. Jared Stidham's not good. You don't draft a 5-year college quarterback with not the biggest upside in the world to sit him, right? Like, he was extremely efficient, led college football completion rate. He can create, where those other 2 guys can't. He's got a better arm. It doesn't have a better arm than Zach Wilson, but he's got a much better arm than Jared Stidham. And I'm not even equating Zach Wilson into this. And Peyton handpicked this guy. So if he's not the starter, I understand the sitting the guy type of thing, but if they had a different guy in here besides Jared Stidham, I would listen to that argument. But they have Jared Stidham and Zach Wilson in there.
Yeah, I'm with that. Bo Nix and Zach Wilson are both 24 years old. So it's not even like we're talking about Nix as a younger guy, right? Stidham, I think, is going to be the one that's going to push Nix more. But I think Sean Payton is going to do enough to make Nix's job not necessarily easy, but manageable. And with his age, the game that he had at Oregon, kind of the mastery that he had of that offense because he was there for so long. And I think if Peyton's like, hey, man, if you're committed to mastering what I'm trying to ask you to do here, you're going to be fine. We may not be great. We may not be good, but we're going to be fine. I think he should be ready to take on an offense like this. I don't view this as an infrastructure that's impossible to, not succeed in. I think Sean Payton's going to do enough to give answers for Bo Nix to be ready to go. And I think Bo Nix can handle it based on, the long run that he had in college in that one system.
When you get to minicamp, there's always messages that teams want to put out about their draft picks, about, to build them up and make them. We heard stuff like, Sean Payton had this guy ranked super, super high on the quarterback list, like could have been a top 3 guy, whatever. Listen to how smart he is. We give him one play and he can repeat it just like that. And this all might be true. But if I'm the Broncos, if this is the way it is and your other 2 choices are Stidham and Wilson, and those aren't great choices. Stidham has played 16 games in the NFL, starting 4. Zach Wilson, I think, is 13-21 in his career starts. And if somebody says, well, what does he do best? Nothing on the football field. Bo Nix is your answer. Then let's say that within the first week of camp. Like, let's get this thing going. I mean, what's the point of having a quarterback competition, particularly if you're going to be starting a young guy week 1 up in Seattle? Not the ideal place to go play. Although it is a return to the Pacific Northwest for Bo Nix if he is indeed the starter. That's kind of cute. But the rest of it, how early does he have to name Bo Nix as his starter if that's the way he's going, Bobby?
The first week of camp is a little bit of a feeling out period. And what I think will happen is they'll go into that first preseason game, and at that point, they will name Bo Nix the starter. Right?
Justin?
Yeah, it feels right. Camp reps are limited. Like, you don't want to waste a single one.
Yeah, I don't. So are we talking about, like, are you the starter of the first preseason game, or are we talking about Bo Nix is named the starter?
Named the starter.
I mean, I think a locker room and a team could have a feel of that even right now, or even as camp or the first preseason game. But I would say third preseason game or the second preseason game, whichever Sean Payton, because now that we have the different preseason game structure, there are some teams that play a lot of their guys the second preseason game or the third game because then they have the week off. Whichever game I feel like the starters play, and this is like their dress rehearsal, that's when I think the decision will come.
Well, the important part is training camp, picking a quarterback and giving him all the first team reps,
right,
and not messing around. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I forgive Bronco fans for this one. I don't know if they've got joint practices with another team. I imagine they do. You talk to a lot of coaching staffs around the NFL, and they say those 2 days that you spend going against another team are even more valuable than the preseason games themselves. I mean, they'll tell you that because they can line up and do the work that they really need to focus on. So if you've got a guy, like, you would want Bo Nix going against the ones of some other team if they are indeed going to have joint practices.
Theirs are late in the game. They have joint practices with the Packers starting on the 16th. So they are a little late in the game with their joint practices, but
okay, so that's before their second preseason game where they would have that. So
yes,
yeah, I would say sometime right after the first is when they have to pull the trigger on this decision. And I think all 3 of us say that Bo Nix should be the guy heading into Seattle week 1, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I got a question. Are you going to any training camps?
So I will be. I've got to call 3 preseason games for the Browns. So 2 of them are at home. I'm trying to figure out they will have a joint practice with the Vikings, whom we will discuss momentarily.
What's the date on that? Ooh.
Those are the first week. It's probably like the game's on the 10th.
August 14th. So,
what are you looking at?
Because me and Justin are going to go to some other teams' training camps. Maybe we can go to Cleveland for that. We drove to Detroit last year.
Oh, my God. I don't know about that.
I can get you tickets to the Browns game, guys. How's
that feel?
Well,
it's the practices that we want to go to.
Oh, well, I can get you into the practices. I can get you into the practice. Then you should watch the game. You could listen to the local broadcast. I know those.
We'll listen to it on the drive back.
Yes.
This guy sucks. Get him off of my. That's it. I don't want to hear that anymore. All right, so we're all on the Bo Nix train here.
Yes.
I'm also on the New England Patriots train too, by the way.
Drake Maye, no chance that he's starting opening day, right? We can all agree on that?
No.
No. I have a dissenting opinion from the kind senator from the state of Florida.
This is partly because I love Drake Maye so much. I would go into this with the plan of Jacoby Brissett as my QB1, right? We've talked about, letting guys sit. This is not a great situation for a quarterback right now. And, we talk about vet versus young guys. Which of the 5 vets would we rather have? Russ, Brissett, Darnold, Minshew, and Stidham. I would rather have Brissett over those other 4 guys. This QB doesn't have anything to lean on outside of maybe Pop Douglas. We'll see how Kendrick Bourne is. The O-line's a huge worry. But I wouldn't slam the door shut on this. I would force Drake Maye to pry the door open, right? If he goes into camp and looks phenomenal, right, which I think he is capable of doing. I think he can benefit from sitting, but I think he's also someone who could be show right away, oh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to elevate this team over what the expectation for it is. I would make him pry that door open. I would, it would have to be I'm trying to think of another situation where something like this happened. I know his career didn't end up, but maybe like Carson Wentz in Philly, right? Where there was no plan for Carson Wentz to play. And, they go through camp and no, we're going to roll with this guy. But I would force him to pry that door open, but I wouldn't shut the door on it.
Yeah, I guess the way that Bobby described it, where he's prying the door open and the coaching staff is just we can't afford not to play this guy. Then yeah, I'll agree with that. But you can make fun of me and think oh, Justin, this is just your brain. This is just a fan thought, and this is no way ever what a football person would actually say. This is not a QB battle in my mind. It's not. Drake Maye is the future of this franchise. Jacoby Brissett is not, and his role is being served perfectly as a backup quarterback. Bridge quarterback. This is all about, are the Patriots ready to play Drake Maye without absolutely ruining him behind a bad offensive line and a terrible infrastructure around him? That's what this is. If the Patriots can answer that question with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback early on in the season, maybe even, I don't think you're going to be able to answer it in camp because things are just so different. But this is not a QB battle. This is about, if we put Drake Maye out there, are we putting him out there to die, or are we putting him out there to thrive and or at least learn and develop?
Yeah, for me, the question is, at what point do you pull the trigger? Because Jacoby Brissett, if he was just a backup again this year, you would consider him one of the top. If you were to have a backup quarterback draft, he would go very high in that. Let me see here. I think I wrote it down. He's started 51 games in 8 seasons. He's not a turnover machine. He's a bright guy. He can actually utilize his legs. We found that out in Cleveland a couple years ago when he had to start the first 11 games for the suspended Deshaun Watson. And who was his OC then? It was Alex Van Pelt, who's now calling the shots in New England. And basically, even though Gerard Mayo hasn't come out and said Jacoby Brissett is definitely starting week 1, Alex Van Pelt has been calling him QB1 ever since the mini camps.
But now, I would sprinkle in some first team reps for Drake Maye, though, right? Maybe it's 80, maybe it's 85-15. But I hate to call back on the Giants as experience, but I remember when they drafted Daniel Jones, even in the preseason, right? They took Eli out, they kept all the other starters in, and would put DJ in. So I would try and sprinkle in some first team reps for him, even in practice, not just in preseason games.
I am curious. What do you guys think when it comes to schedules? I think it might be a bigger thing for us as fans than people in the building. But listen to their schedule out of the gate. It is the first 8 games probably are as tough as anyone. At Cincinnati, home against Seattle. At the Jets, at San Francisco, home against Miami, home against Houston, overseas in London against Jacksonville, and then home against the Jets. Those are all teams that were either in the playoffs or barely missed the playoffs a season ago. So you're not like, oh yeah, well there's a Carolina thrown in there. There's not one where you're like, okay, we feel like those are all. That's a lot of teams with Super Bowl aspirations there, Bobby. Do you think that plays any factor in it?
Absolutely. I definitely believe that teams consider stuff like that. Absolutely. I hope that, you know what his week first game should be? November 10th. At the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams versus Drake Maye. That's what I want.
Does that get flexed? Let's flex it.
Oh. No, there's no way they're flexing the Patriots. But
I know.
But then you give him 8 games to finish the year, So if it goes bad, you get to write it off. If it goes great, you're freaking excited. Let's go. Let's build right now. Like I feel like that's the right spot for them. But hey, if Jacoby Brissett's playing well, I'm also not. I'm fine if he sits all 17 too.
Are
Even
you
if
really?
Brissett's not playing that well, and you think that it's better off for his long term to sit, maybe you give him like the last 2 games of the year or something. I'm not.
Yeah, I think
I'm
whenever
not against that
whenever
at
they're
all.
mathematically eliminated from postseason contention,
which is like never in today's
if
NFL.
Brissett's playing that well.
Okay. All right, interesting. Last quarterback battle that we have, the Minnesota Vikings. And it's really not a quarterback battle because they have essentially said Sam Darnold's our guy. JJ McCarthy is one of the youngest players in the NFL. He had just turned 21 this year, so he's going to be 21 for his entire rookie season. Really, the big question is there going to be a point with this team where they have to get JJ McCarthy in there and moving forward, Justin?
I don't know if the Vikings are ever going to get to that point this year, but I think this is the exact opposite of the New England Patriots situation, Chris, where the Vikings offense, they're going to give JJ McCarthy paths to success with the weapons that they have in their own infrastructure because they have one of the best tackle combos in the league. I love adding Aaron Jones, where they had no semblance of a running game last year. Madison was horrible, 30th in EPA per rush, and also the fumbles on the red zone. Just killed them. So they're going to give JJ McCarthy answers. If they want to lean on the run a little bit more, they can. If they want to go short and check it down, I mean, Justin Jefferson can do anything, but then you also have Hawkinson. If you want to go deep, Justin Jefferson can do it. Jordan Addison is an evolving situation, but he's there. And on the field, I like Jordan Addison. I think he's a really good football player. Be smart off the field. So I think they're going to give McCarthy answers, and Kevin O'Connell's a great coach too. Total opposite of the Patriots situation. Even though McCarthy is young, but he's not necessarily green because he has the Michigan experience. He ran that pro offense. I think he should roll right away.
You think it's an offense?
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Roll right away.
Here's the thing: if you don't think he's ready, then you don't. But if he's like even close to ready, like because this is the perfect, like Justin said, this is the perfect offense to get your confidence built up in, right? And what's the thing we need out of JJ McCarthy? Pulling the trigger down the field. Obviously, the accuracy down the field is an issue, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of JJ McCarthy. But this is the perfect offense to build the confidence to start pulling the trigger on that type of stuff. So, and again, I don't think Sam Darnold's good, right? And third down was a big issue for them when they, Kirk Cousins went out last year. Justin talked about on the TPP coming up. Well, that's where JJ McCarthy was good. He was good on that money down for Michigan. So I'm fine if Darnold starts right away. But I would like to get McCarthy in there fairly quick. This is an offense he could build his confidence up in.
Well, we kept hearing that maybe this is the perfect bounce back situation for Sam Darnold because of this offense. Stop it.
He's going to have like 2-3 games where like, ooh, and then he's going to get fooled by basic coverages and throw 3 interceptions in the game. Like I've seen this movie too many times with Darnold.
So he will start. Do you think he gets pulled because of one of those 3 interception games? Like the first time we see like, ooh, okay, that's the Sam Darnold that we saw too many times with the Jets or the Panthers. Like now let's get him out and let's put the rookie in. Like that could happen in the first month.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is it a mistake if JJ McCarthy does not start minimum of 10 games this year?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm with that.
This is an offense that gives you has some easy buttons in it. Allow him to run that, get confidence. He gives you more to do with your legs. And I want to ask Justin this question: our Giants play the Vikings week 1. Which quarterback would you rather face?
Oh, this is an easy one.
It's not the offense that it's honestly not the offense that I'm afraid of with the Vikings. It's the defense. So that's my main concern.
What? Which the Giants are playing the Vikings week 1. Which quarterback would you rather face?
Answer the question.
I haven't thought about this yet. That's why that's why I started talking about the defense. I'd rather face JJ McCarthy.
Yes. You would rather face JJ McCarthy is the answer.
I don't know. I don't think
But
JJ
there's
McCarthy's
more unknown. That's the thing. With some of these rookie quarterbacks, there's more unknown sometimes. Like, you don't know what they're going to do versus Sam Darnold. You have, like, this sample size of seeing what he does and how he reads the field. So sometimes rookie quarterbacks facing them, like, in their first game could be a little dangerous. Like, look at Will Levis.
Also Darnold, like, he'll put the ball in harm's way. JJ's not. And on that offense, I'd rather play the quarterback who puts the ball in harm's way and creates turnovers. So I would rather face Sam Darnold.
Is it
but
fair
Justin
to
just
say
made
that
the point to face Sam Darnold and said JJ McCarthy, so I don't know.
Yeah, so can I change my mind?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say Sam Darnold.
Okay. Well, guys, I hope that Sam Darnold starts, and then it's a really fun first game for everybody because now I'm interested. I was just kind of okay, so on watching a Giants Vikings opening day. It's not number one on my slate that day, but now I think I might be on board because if I'm on the Sam Darnold train, I'm not rooting against you guys. Don't get me wrong here. I want you guys happy
The
on
only week I
Monday.
need people to root for me. I need a week 1 win. I can't do another week 1 loss. It drains you.
Do you guys have a bad run going right now?
We've won 2 week 1 games in like 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, give me a call when your team goes winless for 2 decades on opening day.
Oh.
That's something the Browns did until 2 years ago.
You had that tie in Pittsburgh. That was nice.
Yeah, that was home. That was a home tie. That was great.
That was a great game, by the way.
We picked off like Roethlisberger 16 times and still couldn't win a freaking game.
It was a muddy game too. I remember that one vividly.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, it was good. It was the only catch of the Josh Gordon era in his return to Cleveland, I believe, something like that. All right, so let's set the table real quickly. We've got Carolina team number 32. That's coming out on Monday, Justin.
Yes, very, very excited. Monday through Friday. You'll even get sometimes on some days football today will be in your ears twice on YouTube and podcast apps. So episodes are about 25 to 30-ish minutes. So lock in. We're going to have a great time.
All right. So do you want to run down the first 5 for next week? Do you have them available?
First 5 for next week. Let me
have that
Can you
available?
do it off rip, Justin? I think I can. I think it's Panthers, Broncos, Raiders, Patriots.
You got the order a little wrong.
All right,
Panthers,
Justin, what is it?
Broncos, Patriots, Commanders, and Titans.
Oh, okay.
We had the Raiders higher than the Titans.
We did.
They won some games at the end, They did.
They did.
I just told you, Aiden O'Connell won 5-5 in his 10 starts. A lot of those teams didn't win 5 games. All right, so we got a lot of work going on here, and always continue to tune in for the Talking Giants world. It was training camp starts next week. Do you guys get a dorm room like those guys? Do you share a dorm room? And if so,
no, Bobby does not want to share any rooms with me.
That's my only demand when traveling is I'm not sharing a room.
So where are you staying? You're not staying in Justin's top bunk?
No, I got an Airbnb, 2 Spring Street in Newark, New Jersey. Come find me, I dare you.
Wow, that's. You know what? Roll video on that one.
I've stayed there the last 2 years, so it's a good spot.
Okay. How many pizzas do you devour over those 30 days?
That's actually a good question. What do you like eat when you're here?
Chipotle is a good go-to, but I buy groceries because it's an apartment complex. But if I do get pizza, it's Pizza Land. It's the place in the Sopranos intro.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really well rated. I like it. It's super thin. So Pizza Land is my go-to whenever I do pizza when I'm in Newark.
Do you do laundry?
Oh, absolutely. I do laundry like twice a week.
Okay. So you're a home. You cook for yourself. You do laundry. This is nice to hear. Penik, I can't wait to dive into your personal life.
No.
I wouldn't even call it cooking. It's just more making things.
That's fine. That's fine. Effort is all that matters here on this show. Okay. All right, guys, don't forget, number 32, Carolina Panthers next week. We've got another episode of Football Today coming out next Tuesday and then Friday as well. We got a lot going on here, and we love it. The football grind is officially back. For our producer, Mikey, does a bang-up job, and Bobby Skinner and Justin Penik, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next Tuesday here on Football Today.
I have one more question.
Oh, what?
I want to ask you guys. Since I'm going to be up there for almost a month, Should I expense my food since it's a month-long trip? Because I've thought about this. I don't want to expense them, because I'm just basically living life in a different house.
The only difference is that there is usually a per diem at most companies, and that's all.
I agree. I'm sure I could get away with it, but in my mind, I'm like, should I try and do that? It would save me a shit ton of money, but
leave it in the comments section. What you do? Yeah, that is because you know what? You don't want the bosses saying, "Hey, maybe next year you don't go for a month." That's a great call. Really good call.
I've only done it when we do like weekend trips. I've never done it on this trip, so it's
got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, now can I do the close again since I got called for a false start and got moved back 5 yards?
Trying to think of any other life advice questions I might have. I'm serious. I want to go to Cleveland. Justin's poo-poos everything that takes more than 5 hours of driving, but I want to go to
unless
Cleveland
it's a NASCAR race.
Correct.
Then he's on board. Holy smokes. I can give you great spots to eat.
We almost went to Buffalo last year, and Justin didn't do it. We were going to stay in Danny King's dorm.
Now we're done. For producer Mikey and Bobby and Justin, who apparently is not leaving his room anytime soon, I am Chris. We will see you next week here on Football Today, unless Bobby has more questions.